Kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto k'tzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir, novel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashvabo. Achein chatzir ha'am, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz, u'devar Eloheinu yakum li'olam. A voice says, cry out. But I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass. All of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers and the flower fades when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. LeDavid Mizmor, L'Adonai haaretz umloa tevel v'yosheva, ki hu al yamim yisada ve'al nehorot yechonaneha. Mi ya'aleh bahar Adonai, umi yakum bimkom kadsho. Neki chapayim uvar levav, asher lo nasa lashav nafshi v'lo nishba lemirma. The earth is the Lord's with all of its fullness. The world is the Lord's with all of its inhabitants. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in the holy place? She who has clean hands and a pure heart. She will receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of deliverance. I know that the grandkids, Michael and Stephen, you were telling me that your grandmother would call you on the phone, and her mantra, her catchphrase was always, have a really good life. That's what she always wanted to do. Have a really good life. She'd say it to you, she'd wish it for you, have a really good life. And to Bernice, what would be having a really good life mean? Well, number one, it would mean dedicating yourself to your family. That would be the number one thing on Bernice's list of having a good life. And she always did. It was her number one priority. Family was everything to her. She took pride in her family. She loved her children and her grandchildren. I know she would visit you in Michigan. She would take care of you so your parents could get out a little bit. She would love hosting the family for the holidays and serving chicken soup and stuffed peppers, which were her favorites. She loved her family as the mother. She loved her family as the grandmother, but also as the daughter. She was very good to both of her parents, especially close to her father. As a young girl, she cherished when she would visit her own grandparents. Family was always at the center of Bernice's idea of living a really good life. But another part of living a really good life to Bernice would be to treat other people equally and fairly. People different from you. People outside the family. People outside the religion. People outside your race. She believed that having a good life didn't just mean having a good time, but living a good and honorable and a decent life and treating people decently. That's the home you grew up in, Art. That's the home that shaped you. You never heard anything derogatory about other people. No labels, no prejudices, no name calling. Your mother was not that way, and she didn't want that stuff around the house. People who met her thought of her as just a sweet person with a ready smile, not domineering, not dominating, soft and pleasant. Not that she didn't worry. Boy, she did worry. Not just as a habit, but I understand her lifestyle was to worry. But that worry was also out of her deep care and her concern and her love for family, because she deeply cared for all of your welfare. She gave off no arrogance, no seeking of status, no airs. She was not a fancy lady, but she was always well dressed, always with a neat appearance, an attractive way about her, but never ostentatious. It didn't have to glitter to impress your mother. It just had to be real and sincere. She was not overly impressed by the glitter. She was content, which is, of course, another part of what Bernice would say is living a really good life, which is be content. Be content with your life. Don't envy. And she didn't. I know she'd have her strong opinions at times. She'd complain sometimes. And I know, Art, you needed to negotiate those moments. But everyone in the family heard from her how much she appreciated you, Art, and how much you did for her throughout her life. She loved you, all that you did for her, all that you did to please her. As the one truly closest to her, she knew how important you were to her. When I would see you with her on Friday nights, when she would come to park, one could just tell in her mannerisms how she leaned on you. You were ever at her side. You gave her the special place reserved for your mother, and you gave it to her with pride and with honor. Of course, to have a really good life for Bernice also meant to fall in love, and she certainly fell in love. To find the love of a partner who would adore you, which he did. Your dad adored her. She met your dad at a high school fraternity and sorority gathering. Both your mom and your dad both had that type of even temperament. No yelling, no sharp tone. The tone was simple and soothing and settling and gentle. You knew they were in love. He went to work each day. She kept the home. Each found their identity by being the perfect complement to each other. Alex, you said Bernice loved to hear love stories, right? Loved to hear stories of romance. Perhaps the reason why she loved those stories is because she had experienced it herself in her own heart, in her own marriage. She and Maury were a very loving couple, filled the home with love, with the steady and the stable feeling that every child needs, and you had that growing up. Finally, to lead a really good life doesn't mean that everything in life is good. To lead a really good life doesn't mean that there isn't pain in life. Bernice confronted pain and she lived it. Sometimes living a really good life means doing the best you can even under the most challenging of circumstances. That's also living a good life. Her husband, your dad, died unexpectedly. They were in the prime of life, a challenge wished upon no one, and she had to confront it. And you lost your dad. It was a sudden loss, and the household was lost, and Bernice was lost. Then she lost one of her own sons, your brother, Mitchell. Out of nowhere, no preparation. Also a challenge of the most dire kind. No one can prevent all sadnesses, but the ability to take one step at a time and to move forward the best you can is the best anyone can try to do. And this is what your mom tried to do. Her life turned upside down twice. And the death of your dad, as I said, the death of Mitchell, which she called the most devastating loss a mother could have, a person could have. Maybe living a good life means not completely losing yourself after such an event. Bernice was down, but she didn't lose herself. She found her way into the future. She found a way to preserve that sweetness. She found a way to preserve that gentleness that others had always seen. She remained a dedicated grandmother more and more with each year. She remained steady friends with Lori, talking to her, maintaining close contact, always wishing Lori well, as we all wish Lori well today. She was active at Park Synagogue and the Sisterhood. She did bandages for those who were sick. She enjoyed gardening. She loved animals. I know she received her first pet from her dad when she was still in the house. We know that she became more vulnerable physically in this last period of her life. But Art, in the words of Marilyn, you were a prince. You were a prince your entire life for your mother. You never wanted to leave her sad. You never wanted to leave her hurting or dissatisfied. You continued to appreciate her and support her to the very last day of her life. I want to just take, you wrote lovely comments. I want to take just a couple of paragraphs from what you had shared with me. First about the birth of children. With God's grace, Maury returned from the war unscathed, and the couple rented their first apartment on Superior Road in Cleveland Heights. Their first son, Arthur, was born in 1948. The family moved to a new house on Silsby Road in University Heights in 1950, and their second son, Mitchell, was born in 1953. Both children attended the Cleveland Heights, University Heights public schools. Mitch was always a straight-A student. Art, not so much. I didn't write it. You wrote it. I didn't tell you. In 1963, the family moved to a slightly newer home on Bromley Road in University Heights. The nearby move intended to keep both boys in the Heights schools, which had a fine reputation. Bernice was always a staunch defender of her children, exemplified when the junior high school gym teacher, quote, paddled Arthur for being out of uniform. She called the school principal and had the teacher reprimanded. Further down, Bernice's love of animals. Bernice was fond of animals, particularly cats. In the 1970s, the family owned a beautiful white male cat. The cat wasn't neutered and would sometimes urinate on the carpet, causing a foul odor. She and Maury decided to part with the cat, relinquish it to the APL. When they returned home, they realized they had made a horrible mistake and went back to the APL to retrieve him. They returned home with what they thought was the same animal. But this cat seemed disoriented in the house. Upon further examination, they noticed the animal had one green eye and one blue eye. So it was back to the APL to search for their beloved pet, which unfortunately had been quickly adopted. But don't worry, the cat with the different colored eyes found a good home. And finally, in her last years, the road to 98 years was not smooth as she endured heart bypass surgery and cataract surgery and breast cancer and hip replacement surgery. in her final years. She also had various falls that led her to the emergency room. Bernice will be remembered as a loving daughter, wife, mother, and grandmother. She took care of her own mother until her mother's death in a nursing home in 1978. She was a great cook and homemaker. She loved to plant flowers and watch them grow. She loved her independence and cherished her ability to get around in her 2000 Chevy Cavalier. She set a fine example for her children and grandchildren, treating everyone with respect, regardless of race or skin color. She lived a modest life. She wasn't a diva or a princess. She volunteered. She was beautiful inside and out. She was loved and will be deeply missed. Thank you, Art. Let's rise now for the memorial prayer. El Molei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Bemalot Kedoshim, Utehorim, Anabal Harachamim Hastireha, Beseter Knafecha Leolamim, Utzror Bitzroecha Mit Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, Vetanoach B'Shalom Amishkava, Venomar Amen. May we remember all of the worthy and the righteous deeds that she performed while in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. God is now her portion. May she rest in peace. And we all say Amen. Let's be seated for another moment. We, of course, want to... I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, come on up. Come on. No, by all means. Come on up. Yeah, by all means. I didn't know. Sorry, I didn't.
I wrote something about my grandmother, so I wanted to make sure I shared it today. For those of you who don't know, my name is Stephen Goldstein, and I am one of Bernice's grandsons. Grandma Bernice was a very special woman to me, and I know to everyone here today. She will never be forgotten and was one of the most special people in my life. Not many people say that they can have lived well into their 90s, for which Grandma Bernice lived to an astounding 98 years old. So summarizing her life and the impact on mine in a few words seems like an impossible task. So for that, I'm going to try. For everyone who knew my Grandma Bernice, you would agree with me that she was one of the most compassionate, kind, and sweet people in the world. With her husband Morris, she gave birth to and raised two incredible sons, my Uncle Art and my late father Mitch. Through the memories I have with my father as a young boy, to the stories told to me by my Uncle Art, I know that my grandmother was an amazing mom who was strong, caring, and resilient. From the day her two grandchildren were born, she loved and adored both my brother Mike and myself. I loved spending time with her, and I have so many fond memories of us doing fun things and being happy. And it didn't take much to make her happy. A simple phone call, a card, a visit, or a hug. In fact, it's the little things that seem to stand out the most. Her calling me her doll boy, her beautiful penmanship and all of the cards and letters that she would send to me over the years, her making me a toasted cheese sandwich when I stayed with her at her house, always having chocolate devil's food cake snacks for when we visited, or her caring for Morris the cat, who belonged to her next-door neighbors when she lived at her house on Bromley Road. And I'm sure everyone here has memories much like mine. They're good memories, something we'll always have to cherish. And while I was thinking about what I wanted to say to my grandma today, I decided to listen to the voicemails I had on my phone from Grandma Bernice over the last year or so. I rarely clean out my voicemails, and I realized that the last voicemail that Grandma ever left me perfectly represented her in every way. It was on Sunday, March 3rd, 2019, at 2:35 p.m., only a couple weeks ago. The voicemail was as follows. Stephen, this is Grandma. I just got lonesome for you and I decided to call and try to talk to you. Anyway, I wish you and your beautiful wife a happy afternoon tomorrow and a happy life. I'm thinking of you and really missing both of you. Anyways, I really wanted to talk to you, and I hope that everything is okay. But be well, honey, and I will call you again soon. Okay, Grandma loves you, Dolly, and your wife. Bye. I can remember from as early when I was a young child living in Michigan, when Grandma would visit us, and after the visit was over, we would take her to the airport and watch her plane take off through the airport window as she would fly back to Cleveland. I can still remember how much I missed her as soon as she would leave, and that feeling has returned more than ever today. Grandma lived so much in her lifetime. Looking through old black and white photographs of her as a young girl reminds me of how much she has seen during her 98 years. During her time, she has touched so many people's lives and was an incredibly warm and sweet woman. She was always so thoughtful and caring and never missed a chance to call and catch up with me and my brother. From as far back as I can remember all the way up to only a few weeks ago, she always called. Called to say hi, called to check in, called to say she missed me, called to say she loved me. She always wanted to know what was going on in my life, how I was doing, and to make sure I wasn't doing too much. We certainly all know that she was a worrier, but it's an attribute that only demonstrated her caring and gentle nature. From the day my wife Alex entered my life almost 14 years ago, Grandma Bernice accepted Alex as her own granddaughter and loved her immensely. She expressed so much love for Alex and our love together, and she was always so proud of both of us. She never missed a chance to ask how her 2 dogs and 2 cats were, and always asked about them. As she was an animal lover, we would regularly have our dog Sunny bark into the phone, and I can still hear her laugh when he would bark for her. She would always say at the end of our calls for us to live a good life and just be happy. The time I got to spend with my grandmother over these past nearly 31 years will be something that I will never forget. Although I believe that she is truly at peace now, it is incredibly hard to let her go. I will remember Grandma for the great woman that she was, because that great woman had a tremendous impact on me. We must carry on with Grandma's teachings to live a good life and just be happy. A life of family and love, a life of spending time with those most important to us. Grandma was a shoulder to lean on, a friend to rely on, and someone who could always make you feel uplifted. So today we celebrate the life of Bernice Goldstein, an incredible mother, grandmother, sister, and wife, and the positive history and memories she leaves behind in this world. So with that, I want to offer my gratitude to all of you for being here to honor the life of a great woman, a woman who had a tremendous impact on everyone sitting here today. I love you, Grandma, and you will always be remembered in my heart. On Saturday, we all had a piece of us taken away, but I know that Grandma is in a better place today, now looking down on all of us with her husband Morris and my dad Mitch. Rest in peace, Grandma, and I know that you will always be with us in spirit. I love you. Thank you.
We want to offer our condolences before we move to the processional. The processional will be taking us to Mount Olive Cemetery, where the burial portion of the service will take place. That's Mount Olive Cemetery. Following following the burial service, the family will receive people at Lander Haven until 8 p.m. this evening. We want to offer our condolences to Art and Marilyn, to Michael and Steve and Alex and Lori, and again, thank you all for coming. Please remain in your seats for another moment. The pallbearers, however, should now come forward.